Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worship for the Mayor of Gravesham.
That's because I was doing the wrong side. Good start again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's slightly warmer, I think, this evening, which is good. May I please ask you to stay standing whilst we go across to the Mayor's chaplain for his address and prayer. Thank you.
Very good evening. Good to be with you all. And we gather here this evening for our meeting in these very early stages of Lent and also Ramadan, both sharing in common the themes of fasting and abstaining. So it's not too late to give something up for Lent if you hadn't realised that this had already started. And of course, we don't become fixated on the item that we have given up. And from a Christian perspective, when we are tempted, we turn our minds more and more to Christ, who fasted in the wilderness for 40 days. And in Lent and Ramadan, by fasting and abstaining, we also appreciate more and more the things that we do have and the things that we can so often take for granted. And I'd just like to quote from an article that I used last week at our Ash Wednesday service from the Dean of Southwark, Reverend Dr. Mark Oakley, an article which I read. And Oakley says, "This Lent, I want to learn the truth that our happiest days are not when we have the best of everything, but when we make the best of everything." And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And with a nod to the life and work of civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died last week, he once said, "We come from disgrace to amazing grace." So may you all discover God's amazing grace as we all make the best of everything that we have. And as I pray now, we especially remember the people of Ukraine on this 4th anniversary of the war starting, and also other conflicts in our world. So let us pray. So dear Lord, bless our meeting here this evening for wisdom and clarity in our decision making, to learn to listen to each other deeply and to make the best of everything. And Lord, we so pray for peace across our world, especially today, remembering the people of Ukraine, that better times will come soon for them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
If I just open with the live streaming announcement. So, as I've said, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Gravesham Borough Council. The intention here is to go through some housekeeping matters. This meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube within 2 working days, where it can be accessed by everyone. Members, please use the microphone in front of you when talking and ensure you turn your microphone off once you've finished speaking. Another member or officer will not be able to speak if your microphone is still on. Please note that the Council's visual equipment may, on some occasions, focus on or near to the public gallery area. Therefore, those in attendance at this meeting may be filmed or recorded. Attendance at this meeting signifies your agreement to this. If, as a member of the public, you do not wish to be filmed or recorded, please inform a council staff member in attendance and we will try to assist where reasonably possible. On hearing the fire alarm, we ask all attendees to immediately evacuate the building. Please evacuate via the nearest fire exits and make your way to the community square outside of the main reception doors. Thank you. So moving on to item 2, apologies for absence. Chief Executive, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies for absence have been received from councillors Aslam, Ridgers and Sizer.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Councillor Baines, please.
Thank you. So moving to item 3, to sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Are you all in agreement with the previous minutes of the meeting? Excellent, good, fine. Item 4, to declare any interests members may have in the items contained on this agenda. When declaring an interest, a member must state what their interest is, and our Chief Executive will just explain that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as members will be very familiar with by now, we will automatically take into account any interests that have already been declared on your relevant DPI forms. So it would only be new declarations this evening that you need to make. Thank you.
Item 5, to answer any questions received from members of the public of which notice has been given under Council Procedure Rule 13. Chief Exec.
Madam Mayor, no questions have been received.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6, we have the minutes of committees to receive and adopt the proceedings, reports and recommendations of the following committees, except those items reserved under Council Procedure Rule 5.2, bracket 6, and to ratify and confirm the orders made by them. So if we move to the first one, we've got the minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on Monday the 15th of December 2025 and Monday the 2nd of February 2026.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
And pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to 6B and D, minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on Wednesday the 14th of January 2026 and Wednesday the 4th of February 2026.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And then we have 6E, minutes of the meeting of Finance and Audit Committee held on Tuesday the 10th of February 2026.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And then we move on to item 7, reserved minutes, to receive and adopt the proceedings, reports and recommendations of committees contained in the list of items reserved under Council Procedure Rule 5.26. And there are no reserved items that have been received. So on that point, I think we move on to consider reports from officers of council. And with item 8, Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Capital Strategy 2026-2027. And we have, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the budget papers which follow this, I'll keep this introduction very brief this evening. But what you have here, members will be familiar with this format by now, are the annual Treasury Management Strategy Statement, Capital Strategy, and the Annual Investment Strategy, which is contained within. All of these papers have already been through the Finance and Audit Committee before being recommended here to full council. With that said, Madam Mayor, I'll hand over to the leader if that's okay.
Madam Mayor, the papers, as you said, has gone through F&A. So I formally move the recommendations for adoption by the council, please. And formally second, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right if required.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Is it agreed by everyone? Are you all nodding? Excellent, good. Thank you, Lee. Councillor Croxton, not Doctor. Thank you. All right, so we move on to the item 9, council tax and budget setting 2026 to 2027. And at this point, yes, I'm going over to the Chief Executive to explain a slight difference in the ruling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just before I hand over to the leader, as is convention with the budget papers, full council normally agree to an extended amount of time being afforded to the leader, but an equal extension of time being afforded to the other group leaders. So in this case, Councillor Mead and Councillor Elliott. Can I take it that full council are happy to support that on this occasion? Great. Madam Mayor, with your blessing, I'll hand over to the leader.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did have a run through earlier discussing tonight's meeting. I did promise to try and keep my speech to less than an hour. So I will do my best. That being said, I think it is actually a very, very good budget proposal we've set out here tonight. The papers are in front of you and they're available online for people to read. I think it's the first time I've been able to stand up here with some sort of degree of quite happiness. The budget is set out the way we have, with hope and aspiration for the future. In previous years, I think back to when we had a budget here many moons ago that didn't balance, and it was balanced with some romantically referred to at the time aspirational savings. I had promised not to keep referring to that particular budget, but it was quite an amazing one where it didn't actually work and only made up worked because they made up numbers. Well, if you add in a few numbers, it's balanced, isn't it? Well, it wasn't. So we had to find savings in year. We got to the point by 2020 that we were able to present to council a balanced budget, a budget that basically means that you can spend what you need to spend without taking money from reserves to balance the budget out. Because ultimately, you only have so much reserves available. It's like a household budget. If you keep taking it out of your savings account to go through each month, eventually you run out. And that's the danger the council had. But in 2020, we presented a 10-year balanced account, and we were very happy with it. But then along came a few things. We had COVID that hit us, and that really rocked us here in the authority, and in fact, everywhere in the country. But financially, for this borough, it was quite a big thing. And it's obviously huge for our population, and many are still grieving about that now. But we are in a point where we've had to move on from that. We also had Ukraine, mentioned earlier tonight, something that came through and has affected us financially as a council. Again, the population within Gravesham. It meant the costs all went up for energy supply, heating costs, petrol costs, food costs, everything related to transport was affected in costing. And that affected how we worked as a council as well, to the point that we had to drain down our reserves. And again, on that, to keep the leisure centre going, which was important to our community, we had to put £500,000 in there one year to help bail them out, to help and keep that community spirit going. The other thing I've got to say we had, and I won't spend too much time talking about it, was the trust budget that really decimated interest rates and caused us huge problems in our financial position. So we went from a balanced budget to one in significant problems. And it wasn't helped by, as a consequence of all those previous items, people were finding they were losing their homes. They were homeless. Our homeless budget rocketed from our normal anticipated figure around 350,000 a year to 1.8 million in 1 year. Now, to cope with that, you can't say to people, I'm sorry, we have got no money. We're going to try and maintain our reserves. You have to help people. You have to put people into accommodation. You need to put them up, and that's what we did. But it meant our reserves really got challenged. Now, as a consequence of that, over a period of time, over the last few years, we've managed to reduce the savings needed to the point where it almost this year got to a balanced budget again. It was going to be difficult going forward, but I've got to say, with all the work done by our officers, and I've got to give credit also to our MP for working the corridors up in the House in the way that she managed to get in additional support for all councils, not just ours, but councils that were in need and were showing areas of deprivation for years. The governments have been talking about resetting local tax, resetting the value of money coming from government in rate support grant. For about 10 years, we were getting nothing from government. And I think that causes a problem. We're now getting something. Now, that has made a big difference for our budget. And that's because the government has now recognised that we have areas of high deprivation within our area. And that's now reflected in the money we get. However, we still need to be sensible. We still have plans and ambitions in this council. We still have things we've got to spend money on and deliver for our communities. Because our communities want and deserve a lot, and they are going to get it. Because what we will need to do is, yes, be careful, but there will be a rate increase this year. It will go up by 2.99%, which is the equivalent of £7.11 per year for a Band D property. Can I repeat that? £7.11p per year for a Band D property. And that's just under 13 pence a week. Now, if you compare that with some of our other areas that do raise precept money at this time, we have Kent County Council, £67.41. So there's £60 a year more than we are. 67.41. We have Fire Brigade, less than us, £4.95. The police, £15. So they're actually double what we're charging. Now, I leave it up to the community to work out the value of the services they get from Gravesham. When you think about all the stuff we're doing housing, planning, bin collection, enforcement, leisure centres, cleaning the streets, picking up the rubbish, a load of stuff there for the very small amount of money we charge as a council. Now, I think we should be appreciative of the fact that our figure for next year at £245.07 is actually very, very good value. And I think that's something we should all congratulate ourselves on, that we've got there. We also, as a council, have spent time and effort to identify those who need more help. So what we have done from April, we know that we've identified about 4,000 families in our community that need additional support in order to pay the rate bill. They're obviously at the lower end of the spectrum, A, B, Cs, on the banding, but we're actually now reaching out to them, and 4,000 will be helped with the rate bill, so they won't need to worry about it. And that went through the Cabinet a little while ago and was considered by this council and agreed. So we only end up keeping 10p out of every pound collected in rates this coming year. So when we unfortunately send out the rate bill, and everyone thinks that Gravesham Borough Council are the ones raising this enormous amount of money, we're only keeping 10p out of every pound for everything that we're doing as an authority. Now, some of the things that we're doing, for example, we are starting, and we will be starting on site, with the construction of the new leisure centre at Cascades. A marvellous new building, swimming pool, gym, and everything else that we need for our community for health purposes and enjoyment. And that is going to start under this authority. We're continuing our programme of new build, much needed housing for local people, and we will continue that programme of work within the borough, and we'll be finding new opportunities, which I'll come to later. We have secured a grant of 1.5 million from the government to improve our community and public spaces, and that is work that we're going to be doing. And public spaces includes our high streets, our business community in Gravesham and beyond. We need to do what we can to support them at this time, to keep people employed, provide choice in our streets, and we will be doing that. But in not just our high streets in the urban area, where we're reaching out, and we will be reaching out, and have also agreed some policy problems to be resolved in the parishes. So we're going from the urban area to all parts of our parishes to provide help and support on things that they want as well as part of that programme of work. We're investing £20,000 to address the issue of nuisance vehicles on our roads. We've all come across these vehicles that seem to park up forever and a day, and nobody seems to know how to deal with it. We're putting £20,000 additional money into the pot to try and deal with them. We're installing 5 new CCTV cameras in areas that have been identified as hotspots, as antisocial behaviour, to give more feeling of security and safety in our community, responding to the issues flagged up by our community. We're investing £20,000 in upgrading bins across our borough. Now, that's in addition to the money we had previously put into the budget. That's a point almost put up from a previous Conservative budget, I've got to say, about 3 years ago, 2022, I looked it up. And there was a point that we are now in a position to pick up those sort of items and move forward and do them. So we will be doing it. So it is something that's important to our community. So we're in a position financially to do it. So we're going to do it. That's the important thing of working together. We're continuing to work in our street cleansing teams, supporting them in the work that they're doing, where they're picking up 8 tonnes of litter every single day in our community. They didn't throw it down there. They don't go around throwing rubbish on our roads and our streets. Unfortunately, members of our community do. People who come into the community or live in our community, they're throwing it out of their cars as they're driving along, or they're just dropping it as they're walking along the street, instead of putting it in the bins that we're providing, going back to the point I made earlier. We need to support those crews and those teams and the litter pickers who are going out there picking up that rubbish that's dropped by other members of the community that makes the community look bad. We need and want a good, clean community that we're living in, and they're doing that for us. We're also going to be making sure we continue to support our residents who need support. We've got budget positions in place and using the software system to try and reduce childhood poverty. We've actually worked on that hard, and in the last 12 months, we know that's down by 4.2% from the records that we've got. Now, I'll move on to a couple of other items. One, I know, for me, I'm looking forward to seeing, and I'm hoping one of my colleagues is as well, because I'm hoping he will don his Christmas outfit again, because we're bringing back the Christmas tree to the Civic Square. I think it does need a special occasion, and I'm hoping that my deputy will again dress up as Father Christmas. Can you all work with me to try and persuade him to do so? I think it would be a great experience to see him a second time round. It's like in the same way we can have the second period of time we can have a balanced budget for 10 years. This will be the second coming of Shane as Father Christmas, and we do need that. We all need a chucking in life, and seeing him as Father Christmas won't be a bad thing. So, so that'd be a good thing. Again, a positive thing in our borough, a positive thing to be seen in our borough. But I come to 2 other areas of work which I think are important in the budget. One relates to an offer I've asked all members in the last 2 or 3 years to come forward. I've explained we've got difficult times in our budgets, but if you've got ideas, don't wait until tonight to come up with them. Come talk to us first. And if we can incorporate them, we will. But talk to us. Now, I'm delighted to say that Jordan, representing the Conservative group, has done exactly that. They've come forward with 2 good ideas that I think we're all very pleased to accept into the budget proposal. And I'll give credit to the Conservative group for the ideas. One is to extend the small business package that we have already offering. We're putting a lot of money into the community, as I referred to earlier, in business rate support coming down from government. I mean, no doubt we'll end up talking about that at some point, and if need be, I'll come back and give more detail on it. But it's a very, very large package of work that we're doing. But it was a request that specifically was to meet those groups of people in the businesses. I understand, I'm sure Jordan will expand upon the point of where when you get a crossover between you get the support and you don't get the support, in the same way we have it with people on the rates who are transferring from one form of benefit system to the other. We have a financial support package here in the council to support those people moving from one form of rate housing benefit and that system into the new one. And sometimes you fall in a gap in between. And I think it's a good idea that came through from the Conservative group of working together to try and find a solution to that. So to that end, what I'd be suggesting is my Cabinet Member for Finance, Raj, the Deputy Leader, Shane, and Jordan, if you're interested, joining a small working group to see how we can actually make that happen, how we can identify the criteria to meet that gap that will be there, and how we can put some money in place to support them. The other idea I think your group came up with, which wasn't one of mine, I hadn't thought of it, but it's a very good idea, and that was the idea of a Gravesham community lottery. I know other areas in Kent are doing it. We've been approached by a number of firms who are interested in setting one up for us, and we're going to do it. And again, that came from the Conservative group. So congratulations by discussing things with us, particularly in a year that we know that we've got a balanced account, a year we know we can start rebuilding our reserves from the delicate, dangerous point we're at. And if you look at the medium-term plan over the next 10 years, we potentially could rebuild from the 2.5 million up to £12 million in reserves. If we were still here and we were able to spend it, that's the projection path we were on. So we're in a good, very, very good place. And now's a good time to build these sort of items in and build them in for the people of our borough, our community who are paying these bills. They need something back. They need the support. And I think these will be two good areas. The other big item I want to speak to relates to another thing that I know is key to many residents in our borough. So I'm trying to play with this to get the wording. Because I've got to get the right wording on this. It's 1.25 million we're going to be moving in the reserves and building a fund to identify areas in the borough where there are brownfield sites that have been stayed as they are rotated through different owners, potentially for a number of years, 10, 15, 20 years, going nowhere. We've all seen reports in the papers of sites and buildings, which I won't go into now, but you can research them for yourself, where quite rightly the public are saying, you've got a local plan coming out, you've got Reg 19 coming out, you're having to potentially release land in the Greenbelt for housing. Why don't you build on the brownfield sites first? Well, we're doing that. We've built the charter. We've tested the model. So we know what we're doing. We also know from experience of the figures I see within other bodies very near to us, a huge amount of government support. Viability on these sort of sites are extremely difficult. And that's why, in part, I can see why private sector developers are saying they cannot bring them forward. Well, that's an argument, isn't it, they can use. What isn't a good argument, though, is not to build something, not to approach us with something that can be built, not to approach us and find a solution to build on those brownfield sites, to give people hope of jobs or housing. We've got to make them a priority. So we will be doing that. This coming year, we'll be using that fund as the initial point to find and identify sites that we can hopefully, through negotiation, purchase, to move them forward, to start getting things done, start building on them. If they're held by us, we will make it happen. I'm not interested in developers holding on these sites for another 5, 10, 15 years and building nothing. We've got to start the process of making it happen. We know from the Charter, financially, it's extremely difficult to get these sites going in the borough. The land values are almost negligent in the size. There's nothing there. To buy these sites, they think they're valuing them at 2, 3, 5, 10 million pounds. They're not worth that. Because time you get the site and you clear the site and start construction, the return at the end of it does not work. It's about time somebody in those development companies start wising up. But we're coming forward and we're going to do something about it. We're going to work with partners to bring forward those sites and make them happen. We will prioritise our brownfield sites. We've got 1 or 2 buildings in particular. We will use CPO powers if we need to. We will work with colleagues on the council here to get that process through. But we've got to make it happen. It's not good enough to keep saying to our residents, Yeah, well, we build on the greenfield first. This is easy. We've got to grasp that nettle. We've got to work with government agencies and say it is not good enough. If you can do it elsewhere, you can do it in Medway where they built Chatham Maritime and all that. You can do it here. Come and work with us and make it happen. Because if we can build on those sites, if we can bring back services that this community needs, then we need to do that. If it's health, if it's leisure, whatever it's going to be, we need to bring back the infrastructure. We need to bring back that basic level of service that people want and asking for in our community. And we're going to do it. So that's all part of this budget proposal. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'd be very delighted to move it and hope that all the bodies will support.
Madam Mayor, just to formally second, reserve my right in the main debate.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Deputy Leader. And I think we need to do a recalculation of time for Councillor Mead.
That's 19 minutes and 55 seconds.
Oh, that's just showing off. So it's over to Councillor Mead. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I want to begin actually by placing on the record the Conservative group's thanks to both the Leader and to the Cabinet for the manner in the way that this year's budget has been approached. I think it's fair to say at times like the ones we're living through at the moment, when politics across the board nationally is in a despicably low place, it's only right to acknowledge that here in Gravesham there has been a genuine effort to work constructively across the political divide to give all members the opportunity to contribute to the shaping of this budget tonight. This approach is welcome. It has been taken up, as the Leader said, by my group, and it is in the best interests of the people that elect us to this place, that when it comes to these big issues, that we can work together, put the politics aside, and actually get on with the business that local residents expect of us. For Madam Mayor, this budget tonight actually matters more than most budgets that we've ever passed in this chamber. For whether we welcome it or not, whether we believe it will happen on time or not at all, the roadmap for local government reorganisation in Kent has been set, and we have responsibility in this chamber to make sure that this local authority is prepared for it. The decisions taken tonight will position Gravesham either in a place of strength or place us in a situation of vulnerability and weakness when those structural changes come and when the negotiations for reorganisation formally commence. If reorganisation proceeds according to the timetable as set out by Whitehall, when the financial resilience and robustness of our reserves are tested and the credibility of our medium-term financial plan is put under the spotlight, this will actually define how Gravesham's voice is heard in whatever that new landscape is to become. So if we assume the increase as set out in the council tax papers, then the 2026-2027 budget, the general fund, is balanced with no requirement, the Leader pointed out, to draw on reserves. This is the product of financial discipline and an acknowledgement that this council has delivered in excess of 10.1 million in base budget reductions over the last decade. The Bridging the Gap work commenced back when I was a cabinet member in 2016, and it's been sustained under successive administrations. And that continuity actually deserves recognition, as it's allowed us to move from a position of heavy resilience on our working balances to one where we can now hopefully begin to build up the general reserve towards 3.25 million and restore our total working balances back to where they should be at around 5.25 million. Now, when the Leader invited members to come up with ideas for the budget, the Conservative group took that invitation seriously. We brought forward additions, and I deliberately use that word additions, as these are, as the Leader pointed out, to be incorporated into the main budget, and I will therefore not be moving any amendments to the budget tonight. It actually feels rather good to be standing here tonight for the first time since 2019, not having to go through the laborious tomfoolery of actually moving amendments, only to know that due to political processes, they would be voted down. For the two ideas, Madam Mayor, that my group are passionate in bringing forward, designed to put our communities first and to safeguard and value the contribution that our small businesses and independent traders make and bring to life here in Gravesham. And I'm grateful that these initiatives, as the leader have set out, has been incorporated into the final budget papers that members have before them. The first one is for a community lottery to be established in Gravesham. The lottery would be run by an external lottery provider and in full compliance with the Gambling Act of 2005. There are notable examples right across the country and some more local here in Kent, where those lottery schemes have actually been able to generate a substantial pool of money that local groups and indeed the community functions of those councils can then use. The lottery has potential to become a self-sustaining funding mechanism for local projects and for community groups right across this borough. We estimate that it would require a £10,000 one-off setup fee, but in return for what we believe would be a self-replenishing fund, we believe that's an investment that's actually worth making. Because we all know that there will be significant pressures in the future when it comes to those non-statutory functions, but quite often it's the non-statutory functions and the community work of this council that is valued significantly by our residents. We also know that at the moment, a lot of our voluntary groups across this borough are struggling themselves with the financial uncertainty and having a pot of money that they could potentially apply for grants through, even if it's £500 to buy football shirts for some of our local clubs. That's make or break for some of these groups. I believe that also the lottery scheme will position Gravesham ahead when it comes to local government reorganisation. As I said earlier, none of us in this chamber know where we're going to end up. And God forbid, but if we end up with some county-wide super authority, it fills me with dread that decisions could be taken down in Maidstone, made up with no Gravesham representatives present about how community functions work here. And with the flexibility of something like a community lottery scheme, it could actually be the final decision that we make here as elected members, that we will set up a trust and discharge that lottery into a Gravesham trust, where we can actually safeguard that some of the events, be it St George's Day, be it Christmas, as the leader pointed out, has a pot of money that local people can rely on to ensure that we continue to be proud of Gravesham. Secondly, we have suggested that around £50,000 should be ring-fenced to provide a time-limited small business support package. And again, we all know at the moment that our small and local businesses are really feeling the pinch. We know as a borough council that we have a responsibility to help them as much as we reasonably can. And we know that when it comes to vacancy rates within our business premises, that even one empty shop or empty unit does matter and does drive down footfall. So what we hope through this business support package is that we'll be able to provide business rates relief top-up and extension 2, reductions or indeed waivers to council licensing and regulatory fees, and support when it comes to the pre-application planning and regulatory advice that's provided for those businesses that would like to expand or indeed invest in the premises that they're in. We've asked for this targeted, lawful and locally controlled business relief with the ultimate aim of slowing down commercial vacancy rates in this borough and demonstrating that collectively this council backs small enterprise during these challenging economic conditions. And I absolutely welcome the leader's ongoing commitment to collaborating in this space. And I will certainly take up that kind offer to be part of the working group. So with these incorporations, the Conservative group tonight will be supporting the administration's budget. And let me be clear, this isn't to say that we think that this budget is perfect, but I've yet to be able to find an example of a budget across the country that is perfect. Pressures indeed remain, and Madam Mayor, there are significant pressures. The Section 25 report highlights how risks remain, including instability when it comes to business rates, demand pressures around homelessness and temporary accommodation, and the macroeconomic uncertainty that we face as a country at large. Local government funding, yes, it has increased, but it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. The system remains highly sensitive to national policy decisions, And we know all too well that when it comes to national policy decisions, we bear the brunt of those at the coalface of politics. But I do genuinely believe that if we continue with the collaborative people first approach that has actually come to characterise this budget setting process, and that we add further expenditure controls and continue to subject major capital decisions to rigorous scrutiny processes, then I am indeed confident that Gravesham will be able to weather whatever storms financially lies ahead. We also really do welcome the approach, as the leader set out in his ending remarks, about ending the ultimate scandal that is land banking in this borough. It's gone on for far too long, and as someone who, with my two colleagues either side of me, represents the villages of Hyme and Shaun, we do not want to see our green belt developed on. And this approach is a practical solution to actually encourage that brownfield site first. So I want to put on the record that you have the Conservative group's full support when it comes to the exercision of any CPO powers. We'll be right behind you 100% on that. Now, before I conclude, I do want to also just simply end by thanking our finance team, because setting a £17.574 million general fund budget and a separate HRA budget in the current climate is no small task at all. Officers across all departments of this council have had to adapt to new ways of working. They've had to absorb restraint in departmental spending, manage audit backlogs, and think innovatively about new income generations and cost controls. And it is good that we're now in a position where we're starting to see that work really pay off. And finally, Madam Mayor, on behalf of the Conservative group, I'd like to especially thank Sarah and the finance team for their constructive engagement with the additions that we've made to this budget. And I know that every member in this chamber would like to probably join me, hopefully, in sending our very best wishes to Pat for a quick and speedy recovery. This budget, Madam Mayor, has the Conservative group's full support.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Now we move on to Councillor Aaron Elliott, who's the leader of the Reform Group.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an amendment I would like to bring to this council. If I could invite committee section to please hand that out. Thank you. First, I'd like to congratulate the authority on the work they plan to do on brownfield sites. I think that's a really, really positive step. Now, what was that 80s Bill Murray film with the little rodent? Groundhog Day, I think it was. Because here we are again, another council tax hike to the maximum permitted without a referendum. Another year of vanity projects that don't replace like for like, reducing what residents actually receive while saddling taxpayers with mountains of debt. And another round of enormous interest payments to service the debts this council has accumulated over successive administrations. At what point do we stop and ask ourselves whether this cycle is actually serving the people who pay for it? Because that is what I want to talk about today, not just the numbers, but the philosophy behind them. There is a default setting in local government, and it goes something like this. Decide how much money you can raise, and then find ways to spend it. It sounds almost reasonable when you say it out loud. But follow that logic over years, over administrations, and you end up exactly where we are. Rising debt, squeezed services, and residents who feel like they're paying more and getting less. Labour will point to their record of balanced budgets. They may even point to Medway and suggest Gravesham has handled its finances more responsibly. But let us be precise about that comparison. Medway is a unitary authority. Were you to compare like for like on the actual services provided to residents, the picture looks considerably less flattering than is suggested. We should not be patting ourselves on the back for a comparison that does not stand up to scrutiny. Let me say something that I think needs to be said plainly in this chamber. This is not your money. It is not my money. It belongs to the public, the residents of Gravesham who go to work, pay their bills, and trust us to be careful with what they hand over. Our job is not to see how much we can extract and then decide where to put it. Our job is to ask what is genuinely needed, fund that, and return the rest. That is the philosophy behind this amendment, and I'm proud that in our first full budget council, our small group of 5 has approached in exactly that spirit. This amendment reduces the council tax increase from 2.99% to 2.49%. Half a percentage point. It may not sound dramatic, but the cumulative effect on residents is real and meaningful. In year one alone, over £41,000 stays in the pockets of hardworking taxpayers rather than disappearing into council coffers. Over the full period of the medium-term financial plan, that figure rises to more than £430,000, nearly £500,000 back where it belongs, and not a single essential service touched. Officers have confirmed their confidence in the robustness of this budget in full. So how does it work? The vacancy allowance across this council has run at close to 3% of employee expenses for the best part of 10 consecutive budgets. That is not an anomaly, that is a pattern. This amendment better utilises that existing headroom by increasing the allowance to £650,000. It is a realistic, evidence-based adjustment, not a gamble. And rather than aggressively topping up reserves, I would remind members that this administration has itself significantly depleted. We are proposing a contribution of £200,000. Prudent, responsible, but not achieved on the backs of the people we were elected to serve. This is only a first small step, but it is an important one because it signals the direction of travel. It shows what a reform-led approach looks like in practice, not ideology, not slogans, but a genuine reorientation of how this council thinks about public money. I want to be direct with every member in this room today. Our group of 5 councillors, we know that. But the amendment in front of you does not require you to agree with everything reform stands for. It requires only that you agree that residents deserve a break, that half a percentage point is a huge message to a family already stretched by the cost of living, and that this council should be doing everything in its power to ease that burden rather than add to it. We've had years of talk about a cost of living crisis, and then when budget setting comes up, we always raise the taxes to the maximum. So the choice is simple. Let actions speak. Vote for this amendment. Show the public that fiscal responsibility can command a majority in this chamber, and it is not the sole concern of a small group of reform members on the fringes of this council. Let us stand together in recognising what money the council actually needs and return the rest. Or vote against and let the public draw their own conclusions about who in this room is really on their side. I'd like to thank the officers who has assisted with this amendment, making it financially robust. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Aaron Elliott. I think you have a
I'd
second.
like to second, thank you, and reserve my right.
Thank you. So now is the moment when we can open the floor to debate. So if you would like to, don't forget, you can only speak once on this amendment. On this particular amendment, you can only speak once, just to remind you, don't want to embarrass anybody. So who's going to speak first, please? Councillor Dibbin, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support Councillor Elliott's amendment to the budget. The proposal is robust and there'll be no adverse to financial impacts, and our residents benefit from the same level of service at a lower cost. Our intention as a group is always to put the needs and wants of the residents of our borough first, and our proposal is aligned with our aim. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. What we're presenting an amendment that is reflect unwavering commitment to the residents of our community from the people of Gravesham. Although we are proposing a modest reduction in the proposed increase of 0.5%. While this is just a small change in the numbers, it signified a massive shift in how we work, from spending more to spending smarter. This 0.5% is not about doing less. It's about parting small savings to our residents so that we could prove that we could be both compassionate and disciplined. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is anybody else indicating? Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking specifically with regards to the amendment rather than the broader budget, which I think is allowed. This amendment, whilst it would reduce budgets, the reserves in the first year, hasn't considered the cumulative impact of the contribution to working balances in future years. There's no proposals within this amendment which demonstrates not clear thought through processes of what would be cut in future years. Councillor Elliott stood by initially recognising the kind of contribution of brownfield sites to the borough and bringing forward housing for residents. I wonder how we'd continue proposing in funding those types of projects if this money was cut from the budget, because it's the cumulative impact that takes the thing. Now, I'm all for having a real good conversation about what we need to do. I mean, we have to remember that some parties, populist parties in the main, do promise an awful lot. They promise that when they get to KCC, they'll lower taxes and cut funding and, decrease to zero, apparently, the taxes that we would be charged as residents. We have to remember the biggest economic burden to residents in Gravesham comes from the increase to their taxes from KCC. And yet, day to day, day in, day out, people will see the benefits of what's delivered by this council and what they get. You know, if we want to deliver the services, the additional services that people have had in this borough, like the Lights Festival, Christmas celebrations, celebrating other festivals throughout the year, they need to be paid for. It would be all very well and good to expect to find a magic money tree like the Reform Group are proposing tonight, but it shows a clear lack of understanding of the finances and the fact that proceeding forward, you would need to work out where that money comes. You can only take money from reserves once. You can't take it on a cumulative basis year in, year out. So that has an impact on the longer medium-term financial plan going forward. And it also reduces the amount of the council tax base that this council can collect going forward. So it does have a cumulative impact. And we've seen that in previous years when the amount of the precept that's been increased. Now, it's very nice to look at the big number, the 40-odd thousand pounds that's been proposed here. But what you've got to remember is the actual impact to every single resident would be far lower than that. And we have to remember the amount of support that's put in place to support those struggling families. 4.2%, as the leader set out, of struggling families in this borough have been have been supported through the challenges that they're finding, precisely because we're able to invest in those sort of programs. If you take the money out of the system, we're no longer able to invest in those sort of programs. I think this puts our most vulnerable in society at risk and shows a clear lack of understanding of how budgeting is done. Because if you take it out of reserves once, it can't be taken again. So you need to find where else to tackle the cumulative effect and the impact of the changes that you're proposing tonight. And it's precisely for that reason that I will not be supporting this amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
Points of information, Madam Mayor.
What is it? Thank you.
Councillor Rolls has twice there said that we would be taking money from reserves, and that is not what this amendment does. This amendment is proposing putting £200,000 into reserves, not taking from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aaron Elliott. We've noted that. I think I have Councillor Shane Mockery-Cox, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'll speak just briefly to the amendment. Thank you, Councillor Elliott, for the amendment and for the tone for most of the speech that welcomes some of the things that have come through, like the Brownfield Reserve that has been mentioned. You know, we're trying to, as an authority as a whole, tackle some issues that we will always find common ground on because we're here to support residents. I agree with my colleague, though, Councillor Rolls, on the cumulative impact issue. What sounds like a very small amount of money this year is actually a large amount of money as years go forward, and this is thanks to the officer team a balanced budget, working together with all of us, a balanced budget over a long period of time, and it's important we start reinvesting in those services that people tell us they want on a regular basis. While it is your amendment is 3 pence per week, and in the grand scheme of things does not sound like a lot, and I recognise the points you've made on the cost of living crisis, but that would be also the equivalent of cutting a quarter of all our CCTV cameras. That's the kind of things we're doing. And while your amendment is very specific, it speaks to a specific thing. What we're trying to do is rebuild back these services after 14 years of cutting them, and tonight trying to end that cuts program and deliver for local residents again. So I suppose I want to end by imploring that the approach that's been taken is tried to be very collaborative in this authority with this budget, because we recognise it's a different settlement, and I would hope that if not this year, the invitation will be taken up next year. We can work together collaboratively to try and find some ways forward for next year. I'm not going to support your amendment tonight, based on the cumulative impact issue. But I hope moving forward we can find a more collaborative way to try and implement budgets moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shea Mockery Cox. And I think I have Councillor Croxton, please.
Yes, I'll be very brief. I think it's gesture politics, first of all. But it's unfortunately the more serious side to this. And I remember back when previous administrations actually set a zero budget or deliberately set a lower budget. The problem was that the following year, you then had to set an increase on a smaller budget. And that budget gets smaller and smaller. And you cannot recover that situation. And there have been many councils that have gone into that gesture politics and found themselves then scrambling around for essential money to provide the essential services, and the cuts then have to come elsewhere. It's not robust. Anybody who understands how compound interest works over time and how budgets, if they are set by percentages, increases on a certain budget, well, if you make that budget smaller, then your income the following year becomes smaller and smaller. And if you talk over a period of time, as we've done here, of a figure of 400 and something thousand pounds, I believe, looking down here, that is an awful lot of essential services that will not necessarily be provided in the quality that we would expect and the public would expect. So it's not robust, it's gesture politics, and it's actually economically absurd. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Doctor. Oh, forgive me. That wasn't deliberate. That really wasn't. Councillor Lee Croxton. Now, I haven't said, there is another hand. Councillor Jordan Mead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think I'll start by saying that where we can have low taxation, we should always have low taxation. But I think I don't need to repeat the points that have been made very well this evening, that if low taxation comes at the cost of providing less of the support that residents need and actually undermines some of the support schemes that we have in place in this authority, then I'm afraid that I simply cannot support them. I think back to the countless number of scrutiny committee meetings that I've chaired, where we've had updates on brilliant initiatives such as the low income family tracker. I think about debates that we've had here in this chamber where the leader has committed time and time again to the philosophy of Gravesham has a clear distinction when it comes to people who can't pay rather than those who won't pay. And I'm confident that those support structures are still in place. I actually believe through the budget proposals that we have unamended that more support is coming for those vulnerable residents. And actually, I think of the idea that we brought forward when it comes to supporting our businesses in this town centre. The compounding effect of the proposal that we have before us tonight could actually undermine the ability for us to provide that support to those businesses. And why does that matter so much? Because if one business in this town centre folds, that then could lead to people losing their jobs in this town. And indeed, there's a whole supply chain. I think of one business that I visited recently where they only had 3 employees in the premises here in Gravesham, but that business indirectly across this borough employed over 200 people. They're one of the businesses that's worried about business rates. We have a budget tonight before us that may be able to support that particular business and others in this community. And I'm not going to risk anything that jeopardises the support that I know is in place for those that are genuinely struggling within our community. And therefore, the Conservative group will not be backing this amendment tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan Reid. I think I have another speaker, Councillor Deborah Croxton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really just to piggyback on what my colleagues have said in the chamber, I think that this proposed amendment would actually affect the services that Councillor Elliott is saying won't. I think that this is a very short-sighted amendment. I don't think a lot of thought has gone into it. And just to keep it brief, I will not be supporting this amendment. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Deborah Croxton. And I think I have Councillor Emma Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The last budget that didn't raise council tax to the maximum was 15 years ago. We wanted to show the people of Gravesham that they matter. We have given 2 well thought out options to support this council tax reduction. One was to slow the reserve top up and one was to raise the vacancy allowance. Nothing else in the budget would have been touched. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emma Elliott. Do I have anybody else who wants to speak, or shall we go back to the Leader of the Council? Thank you, Leader.
It's on. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to wind up on this particular amendment, obviously I will be asking all members to reject it because it doesn't make sense. I think my reasoning for that is quite clear. The saving works at £1.16p for a Band E property per year. Now, I know many members of Reform and supporters of Reform like reading the Daily Mail. You can't buy the Daily Mail for £1.16. So you'd be without your pay. You can't even pay for the paper you like on the saving you'd achieve in the year. It is pointless. It doesn't help anyone. But I think the more damaging thing to the budget isn't so much that small little saving, it's a gimmick. Now, I appreciate it's your first attempt, so I have to give you a bit of leeway on that. I suggest that you recognise that this year has been a spectacularly different year to most years than most members here in this council have been on. I can't remember the last time this council, you have to probably go back to pre-2010. I'm not sure how many people here then, but prior to that, we were talking about increases in the money from government every year. And we were moaning about how small the increase was. Ever since, the money was cut. And we've always had to struggle with how do you balance the account with less money. So it doesn't really make sense to not recognise we're in a different world today. Things have changed. We've got a balanced account. We're indicating that that will grow, the reserves will grow, if we allow it to happen. Now, we'd be looking to spend money. We've got things to do. And I'm concerned that it's the naivety of this, if it was agreed, worries me more than the value. The naivety, many of you went and had the training through the FNA, from the audit people the other day. And they were talking about how the council needed, the reputation of the council was important, how we were working, how we were looking at our budgets, how we were saving money, how we were investing. We're all critical to the council and perception of the council, and particularly to the lending bodies out there. We're looking to go to the market, potentially, to borrow money, to invest in this borough, to make things happen. If you undermine the credibility of this council by little gimmick things like this, it doesn't help. What I suggest is all members reject it as an amendment, support that rejection. I'd ask Reform to think about what you've done this year, that you've not actually reflected on where we are financially as a council and what this budget represents. come talk to us next year. If you've got ideas you want to incorporate, come talk to me. I'm open for ideas. We'll be in a position next year, hopefully we can do things. Let's work together. Effectively, it will be our final budget. Let's make it good for the residents of Gravesham. It is about our residents here I care about, and we've got to make sure it's a good one. So please work with us. Don't come up with little gimmicks like this. You can't even pull off the gimmick at Kent County Council, so don't try here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. And now I think I come back to the Chief Exec for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think most members in the room will be familiar with the local authority regulations from 2001, which do require a recorded vote automatically on anything to do with the budget. So what I will do in a second is run through each councillor present one at a time, asking you to declare whether you are for, against or abstaining. To be clear, this is purely in relation to the amendment as proposed by Councillor Aaron Elliott at this stage. So whether you are for, against that or abstaining, please. So taking councillors one at a turn, can I ask Councillor Derek Ashenden first?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Ashenden.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Atwell.
Against.
Councillor Beattie.
For.
Councillor Bungar. Oh, is the microphone on?
Was that against? I can't hear. What did you say?
So against the, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Burden.
Against. Clear.
Councillor Deborah Croxton.
Against.
Councillor Lee Croxton.
Against.
Councillor Dibben.
For.
Councillor Aaron Elliott.
For.
Councillor Emma Elliott.
For.
Councillor Glendenning.
Against.
Councillor Harding.
For.
Councillor Hart.
Against.
Councillor Hare.
Against.
Councillor Hills.
Against.
Councillor Giselle.
Against.
Councillor King.
Against.
Councillor Larkins.
Against.
Councillor Mead.
Against.
Councillor Metcalfe.
Against.
Councillor Milner.
Against.
Councillor Mockery Cox.
Against.
Councillor Morley.
Against.
Councillor O'Malley.
Against.
Councillor Pearton.
Against.
Councillor Rana.
Against.
Councillor Christina Rolls.
Against.
Councillor Lenny Rolls. Councillor Scollard.
Against.
Councillor Ectavine Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Narinderjit Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Wardle.
Against.
And Councillor Williams.
Against.
And last but by no means least, Madam Mayor.
Against.
Thank you. I'll make that 30 to 5. Yeah. Madam Mayor, that amendment is lost 30 against 5 for, which moves us back to the substantive motion as laid by the leader earlier. Thank you.
And for that, we come back to the leader, but just to point out that once the leader has spoken.
Oh, leader's already spoken.
Oh, he's already spoken, I beg your pardon. Yes, the leader's already spoken, as has Councillor Mead and Councillor Aaron Elliott. So the floor is open to everybody else, and Councillor Helen Ashenden has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of the Gravesham Community Lottery will be twofold: to generate additional funding for the council's non-statutory community work, and also to provide small grants for community not-for-profit organisations operating within the borough. Most of these organisations are run by volunteers with very small budgets, so a small discretionary grant of as little as £250 to £500 can make a huge difference, not just in finance terms, but also to show them that their work in the community is appreciated. The fact that this proposal has been put in the budget is a testament to the spirit of cooperation between the parties in Gravesham. Whether or not LGR actually happens, Gravesham will have a legacy that will carry on for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Helen Ashenden. Who else do I have to speak? Councillor Derek Ashenden. It's all in the family.
Yeah, another Ashenden. Tonight, for us, we have been presented with a budget that is actually a balanced budget, and it's worth noting that this has been achieved without drawing down from our reserves. And after tonight's meeting, the process just continues. Again, and it's also worth noting that next year's budget, 2027-28, will be actually start to replenish into our reserves. But this balanced budget and any other future budgets are a result of balancing many budgets throughout the year. It's a difficult and challenging job for sure, and our finance team have to do much, much more. To list just a few, they have to report to Cabinet and committees, produce a medium-term financial strategy, keep the council legal, manage our investments, and keep us solvent, and of course cost new policy proposals. All of this has been completed throughout the year, and despite our finance team having disruptions such as staff leaving and maternity leave and sickness. Myself and Helen have been having online meetings with the finance team, including our 151 officer on Monday mornings before finance audit meetings. We have asked lots of sometimes very probing questions, sometimes just very basic questions. But what we have noticed, they are clearly do know their brief, and also they are dedicated to this challenging task. The bottom line is, it's very easy to criticise and find fault, but finding a credible alternative is not so easy. And we really should appreciate the work those officers are doing, not just for us in the chamber, but also for the residents that we represent. And so I recommend we approve and vote for this budget, as I have no credible alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derek Ashenden. Do I have anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, Councillor Leslie Hills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I, firstly, with your permission, take this opportunity to thank everybody who recently gave me messages of condolence and offers of assistance and help, and I do appreciate that. And I, of course, include all officers here and all members of all parties. Thank you. Most of what I was going to say about the budget has already been said, so I don't really like the idea of repetition for the sake of it. But I would like to make one or two observations regarding the leader's reference to brownfield sites. Given that my party is opposed to building on the green belt, that is the policy of my party as I understand it. And we've had some discussion recently about the local plan, and I've become almost exasperated with the discussions on the local plan that seem to have been going on for years and years and years. Going back to, I think it was 2017, we had a consultation on a referendum almost on development on the green belt, and I think there were some 6,000 respondents, with 90% of them opposed to green belt development. Prior to this vote, we had a lot of site allocations discussions where there were little red bits on a map that were snippets of the green belt that we could build on. I think some of the naive councillors at the time thought there was no harm in that, little snippets of it. And some of the more ambitious ones saw this as an opportunity to build on the green belt. But as far as I'm concerned, the results of that consultation has just been gathering dust on the shelf. Nothing seems to have come of it. And I do know even at the time that a lot of people saw the approach road to the Lower Thames crossing as an opportunity to extend the urban barrier and build on the green belt. So I was pleased to hear the reference the leader made.
Yes, I'm so sorry, but you're going off
remarks about brownfield development.
Going off the budget.
That's all I wanted to say. I only raised it because the leader raised the building of on brownfield sites and given priority. But there's a bit more I wanted to say, but if you think that's enough, okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hills, and it is good to see you back in the chamber.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to speak in support of this budget because of so many reasons. Because the most it presents is a real opportunity to stop the destruction of our green belt by encouraging brownfield sites to be our first ever, if this means CPOs powers are to be used. So I will be in support of this budget because it opens up so many opportunities that we don't need to destruct our green belts. We can do the brownfield sites first, and I'm very supportive of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie Pearson. We did have Councillor Lenny Rolls first, and then I think Councillor Emma Morley. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think none of us come into politics to increase taxes. And everyone in this chamber is here because we want to serve the people in the borough and make sure we do right by people in our communities. And that's why, in that spirit, it's been great to take in some of the proposals from the Conservative group to tonight's budget. And I think that we've got a budget before us that we can all be proud of. And I think it's an example of how the administration works really closely with officers. And I, as well, would like to echo the comments that have been made already, because over many years, I think Sarah and the team have been sick and tired of the questions that I've got about the budgets and finance, and their support has been amazing throughout. And that goes for all officers that are working together to deliver for the residents in this borough. But also, I think the kind of proposals that have been brought forward in this budget demonstrate, lifting people out of poverty, dealing and supporting the most vulnerable in society, I think is really important. That's in this budget. Supporting homelessness, really vulnerable, has cost us an absolute fortune, but it's right to be there when people are really out on the streets and they have no support at all. We're supporting businesses in the budget. We're building homes and planning for the future with this budget. In the area that I help support, we've been able to secure additional government funding of around £1.6 million to bring forward brownfield sites already with Milton Place, decontaminating sites to build homes for people in this borough. We're building the charter where flats will start to come online that are being rented out to local people, and there's some in the development are available at affordable rents. Despite all that you've heard everywhere about the whole block being sold to Lewisham or London boroughs, to be clear once again, it's being built and managed and run by Gravesham, and it was built for Gravesham residents. So, there's so much that's being done in cultural programmes and everything. I know colleagues will cover that off. But this budget represents hope and represents a positive future for people in the borough. And let's be clear, the increase for people is, nobody wants to see taxes go up, but the increase to £7 by £7.11 across the whole year will really deliver for residents. When people's tax bills start landing through their letterboxes very soon, only 10p in every pound comes to Gravesham Borough Council. The major increase comes from an authority and from an administration reform that said that they wouldn't put up people's taxes, yet did. They promised one thing in opposition. They promised popular things, but when they come forward, they can't deliver. This Labour administration recognises ways to deliver for our borough, and we're prepared to work with others from the Conservative group to make sure we're delivering for all of those groups. And that's why I'd urge every member in the room to support this budget tonight. And once again, thank you to our officers, but thank you to the residents of the borough that provide, for voting for us and to be able to bring forward these policies that will provide for people in the borough. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lenny Rose. And I think we have Councillor Emma Morley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to speak about some of the services we're able to deliver with this 10p in every pound that we get at Gravesham. So in my areas, we have recycling rates are on the up, residual waste is down. So as everything's going in the right directions, we've got more food waste being collected between quarters 1 and 3. It's 1,100 tonnes more than this time last year. So it's all positive stuff which we were able to deliver because of the budgeting from our finance teams. And the help also, as the leader mentioned earlier, the 8 tonnes of rubbish that's collected every day, we're supported by 849 street champions now who help us. We appreciate their help as well. Our fleet is entirely run on HVO fuel now. We've managed to make good vehicles out of old vehicles. No extra cost to swap the fuel over. So just wanted to highlight the services we're able to deliver and what we're getting for our 10p in every pound. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emma Morley. And now I have Councillor Deborah Croxton. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really to piggyback, I think this budget is very positive. It supports the residents of Gravesham and it allows us to continue providing the level of service that they've come to expect. Just over the last couple of years, we have received through the current government some incredible funding opportunities that we've actually worked hard to secure. And a couple of those I'd like to go over would be the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That's allowing us to deliver improvements to the Hive, the Shopfront grants, the Twilight Economy and the St Andrews Activation grants. The first level has been completed and consultation is underway to work on the lower level of the gardens. The Local Regeneration Fund is allowing us to look at town centre improvements, the improvements to St Andrews Arts Centre and the St George's Community and Studio Space. We secured the 1.5 million Pride in Place. These are projects currently being collated for consideration, but it would include community spaces, public spaces and high street town centre revitalisation. And it's going to be with buy-in from the community that these projects will actually move forward. Finally, the Sport England funding, again, another government funding source, has equated to 150,000 being focused in Gravesham. And it was because of our deprivation areas, primarily Westcourt and Northfleet North. And it's the aim of reducing inactivity levels within Westcourt and Northfleet. We have seen an uptake of over 10,000 visitors to our leisure centres in the past year, which I think is very positive for the health and well-being of our Gravesham residents. So this is something that's been really positive in my area, and it's something that our Labour government has allowed the local governments to actually secure funding for these improvements for our residents. And again, I believe this budget is positive and I will be supporting it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Deborah Croxton. And now we have Councillor Virginia Singh Atwell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we all know that household cost is rising. Even the minimum council tax payments has been increasingly difficult for some families. Although KCC did not support the proposal, but the members voted in favour to amend the council tax reduction scheme for 2026-27 to increase the level of low-income working-age households in the borough. The changes will move us to a scheme offering 100% council tax support scheme. The increased level of support will be proactively help those on the lowest income in the borough and provide real assistance to the families facing hardship. It's estimated that these changes will support around 4,000 financially for low-income households. Madam Mayor, as the leader mentioned earlier, the increase of £7.11 in the council tax, 13 pence per day, but also I want to remind everybody, 58% of the household will experience an annual lower increase, lower than £7.11 due to the property being in band A and C. I just want to echo my colleagues as well. I just want to remind everybody that the Gravesham Borough Council receives only 10p out of £1 what the residents pay of this Gravesham Borough Council. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you to Sarah and the team for all the hard work for preparing this budget. Madam Mayor, I fully support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'm calling you a doctor now. I've got doctors on the Councillor Atwell. I think we then have got Councillor Shane Mockery-Cox, and then we also then have Councillor O'Malley, and then I think we'll go to the leader because the paleotypists will need a wee bit of a break. So, Shane.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to also thank officers for their work on the budget. I think it's always a very tight turnaround, and I think it's right that we recognise that. I'd also like to thank the opposition for the constructive nature and the approach to this budget, and I hope the invite from the leader is taken up next year as well. I've got to say, the conspiracy in this chamber to get me to like Christmas is something else. The fact that it's got cross-party support is something I'm not quite sure I welcome. We do from a sedentary position, from my evil twin at the end there. Unfortunately, it's something I can't support, but I support the budget overall. I think this is the start of a bit of a restoration budget of services that the residents love and support. A point that needs to be teased out is councils are not businesses. They provide services, public services. But they also don't just provide statutory services. They're not just there to deliver government services. They deliver people services people want and to bring people and communities together. It's there to do the hard work, but it's there to do the things that bring joy as well. The hard work includes the brownfield first approach. We are literally working to put the council's money where its mouth is in this approach. We said it's brownfield first, and you're not going to get me into the local plan, Madam Mayor. It's not going to happen. But we are backing up that commitment with financial reserve to make sure we can deliver that as much as we can in the resources of our borough council. We're putting ourselves in a really good position, ready, as was highlighted earlier, to make sure that when LGR does come, we're in a good financial position for that as well, and to make sure we minimise and de-risk the budget situation we have found ourselves in over several years of austerity, and we're able to deliver that. So we're investing now. We're putting back that hope, putting back that aspiration. We're ending the cuts after all those years. £10 million worth of base budget cuts stopped today because of the settlement we got and the financial wizardry that has taken place from the Section 151 officer and her team and all the officers, and investing. We're increasing the budget for building control. Doesn't sound like it's one of those services that everyone needs, yet no one really sees. We're increasing the planning enforcement budget. It's in there, because people do say they want planning enforcement, and we have actively increased the amount of enforcement that is done in this borough. And we're increasing the budget for businesses and economic development, including that which was proposed by the opposition, to make sure that we can support our businesses in what are continuing to be challenging times, and how we do that locally really, really matters. So I think this is a budget we can be proud of as a collectively, as administration, but as a council as a whole, because ultimately it's about delivering on people's priorities. It delivers our manifesto commitment, and our manifesto commitment was actually about making sure we're a financially sound and secure council. That's what it said, and that's what we're trying to do collectively, working in partnership with everybody. So it's the start of a journey. It doesn't mean to say it's the end, but we've got a long-term settlement now, and hopefully for the what could be the final year of this authority, we have a budget to be proud of now, work for in the future, and make sure it's even better next year. But no Christmas, Chair. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Father Christmas. Councillor Karina O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to totally support this budget, and I'd like to thank Sarah and her team. And we say thanks to her, but the amount of work and toil that goes into this is incredible. And I'd just like to pick up one small thing that I'm really proud of, because the question is why we're going to politics. Because I mean, I've gone into because I actually care about people, and this budget enables certain things. And I won't talk about the brownfield site because I totally agree with that, as we all know from my housing portfolio. But one other thing I'd like to talk about is the homelessness. And what this type of budget enables us to do is to work in collaboration with the NHS, for example. We've got this wonderful initiative, and this budget enables us to do this, to work in collaboration with the NHS, to work with verified rough sleepers or people who are at risk of homelessness, to offer them some mental health support, early intervention mental health support. And what we've been able, and this enables us to do, is to have the skills of a consultant psychiatrist that's going to help our homeless people and people in temporary accommodation, to give them intervention and support early so they don't, become homeless. And if they're in temporary accommodation, they don't become verified rough sleepers. So these are the kind of things that matter. It's how we support the most vulnerable in our society. And that's why this budget to me is enabling us to do that. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Karina O'Malley. And now I think I come back to the leader, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is actually, I think, a very good budget, and I just remind all members, at the end of it, I'll be asking you all to vote for the motion, please, and support it, and get behind it. If need be, you can stand up and shout for, to be clear that you're supporting the motion. But what I would say is this is a good budget. It's something that we should be proud of. It's something that I'm actually very proud of this borough and all the years I've been on it. We are now at a point where we can actually stand up almost at the sort of swan song of Gravesham Borough Council and say we've got a balanced budget. We've overcome all the problems that the world has thrown at us in the last few years. We've got a balanced budget. We're forecasting growth in our reserves. We're forecasting the ability to intervene in our community and build out on some of our brownfield sites, make things happen. I've got to be clear, building on those sites and making them a priority does not stop the release of land in the Greenbelt. We know that. And I don't want to get into that particular debate, but Reg 18 was done under Conservative administration. Cabinet members dealt with it then. I think there's one or two punch-ups, if I remember, around at the time about some of the detail of it, which we'll gloss over at this stage. But it's been going for some time. But this budget gives us hope. I'd ask all members to get behind it. What I'd ask all members to do is seriously think for next year. It may well be our final year before we go into LGR. You'll see in the budget papers, we put £750,000 towards the cost of that merger. We may have to build up on that next year. But let's just see what happens out of the government decision process. If this is going to be our final period, can I ask all members seriously consider, come and talk to me during the course of the year. Don't come up with little silly gimmicky motions. It doesn't work. Put the people of Gravesham first. Put them first. Let's have a budget we can come together on and be proud of. Gravesham Borough Council delivering for the people of Gravesham. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. And now I go back to the Chief Executive for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this will follow the same pattern as the previous recorded vote. But to be clear, what you are voting on here is the motion as laid, which follows the recommendation set out on page 95 or 97 of your agenda, depending on how that's as printed. I will ask you in turn, same order as before, to say whether you are voting for that, against that, or abstaining. So, Councillor Derek Ashenden.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Ashenden.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Atwell.
For.
Councillor Beattie. Councillor Beattie.
Against.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Bungar.
For.
Was the microphone on? Sorry.
Councillor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Burden.
For.
Councillor Deborah Croxton.
For.
Councillor Lee Croxton.
For.
Councillor Dibben.
Against.
Councillor Aaron Elliott.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Emma Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Glendenning.
For.
Councillor Harding.
Against.
Councillor Hart.
For.
Councillor Hare.
For.
Councillor Hills.
For.
Councillor Jasal.
For.
Councillor King.
For.
Councillor Larkins.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Milner.
For.
Councillor Mockery Cox.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor O'Malley.
For.
Councillor Pearton.
For.
Councillor Rana.
For.
Councillor Christina Rolls.
For.
Councillor Lenny Rolls.
For.
Councillor Scollard.
For.
Councillor Ectavine Tandy.
For.
Councillor Narinderjit Tandy.
For.
Councillor Wardle.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you. And again, last but not least, Madam Mayor.
For.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, that motion is carried 34-5 against.
Thank you, Chief Executive. And I think now moving on, because I think we're okay still, looking across at you, we have item number 10, the Local Authority Housing Fund Round 4. Now, this is for the all the council, all the members to note. Right, so we can move on. Item 11, representation on political groups and committees appointments to committees. Whoa, said that round the wrong way. Never mind. Go across to Chief Executive first, please.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So in line with legislation, this updates the representation on various political groups following additional members joining the reform group. So with that said, I'll just hand over to the leader.
The papers are quite clear on the recommendation, the motion, so I've just formally put it in order to move forward on time. That's agreed.
Second.
Is that agreed, please? Thank you. Moving on, we go to the appointment to outside bodies. And I think I hand over to the leader, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to be quick again, bear in mind the time. There's only 2 appointments to outside bodies we need to deal with. I put them as a motion that both go through at the same time. The first relates to the Gravesham Regatta Committee, and the position there would be Councillor Alan Metcalfe is to replace Councillor Helen. To replace Helen Ashenden. So that's the first one. And the second one would be the reappointment of Councillor Tony Pritchard to Elizabeth Huggins Cottages charity. He is currently the member on there at the moment. That's it, Madam Mayor. Seconded, please, somebody.
Please second, Madam Mayor.
Agreed. Thank you. Is that agreed by everyone? Thank you. Right, you're racing ahead now. I can't keep up with you. Hang on a minute. So, item 13, to consider questions from members of the council, of which notice has been given under Council Procedure Rule 14 to the Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No questions have been received.
Excellent. Are we doing all right over there? Excellent. So we're on to agenda item number 14, which I think is down to me. So we're actually doing the time. Whoa, doing the time to receive my announcements. Just very briefly, we had the Cobham Hall lunch on Sunday. It was exceedingly successful. We had a really glittering attendance. And the Christoph Bull, and I hope he will watch this at some point, I asked him to do, and he entitled it A Dollop of Darnleys, to do only 10 minutes. And he looked at me aghast to start with. But we kept on at him, and Heather, his wife, was with him, and she kept her watch like this, listening to him, and he actually did it in 9.5 minutes. So should you be watching this, Christoph, thank you. I did thank him in person, needless to say. And we had a very, very talented lady, Emily Seabrook, who performed 2 beautiful songs from musical theatre. And the 2 charities, which I'm sure you all know, I'm supporting this year, the Elliot Holmes Memorial Fund and Eleanor, they were delighted, and the funds are still being counted, but hopefully we've raised more than £1,500, heading towards £2,000. We had incredibly generous sponsorship from Silverhand as well, which really helped. Looking forward, Friday the 24th of April, please put that in your diaries here at the Woodville. Friday is Fish and Chip Day, isn't it? Yes. So we are having fizz and chips. You will get fish, but the fizz will be Silverhand fizz. So there will be a disco, and there will be 9 p.m. showtime, where we have 4 very, very talented youngsters in Gravesham, exceedingly talented. I've heard all of them, and we're working at the moment with them to perform various songs from musical theatre. It will just be a half-hour showtime. Bumper raffle, dig deep in your pockets. We need you there, please. Please, please, we do need you. And this will be my swan song. So, you know, come and support the whole thing. And it's at the Woodville, it's only just downstairs. So look forward to that. Meanwhile, we're still in time, aren't we? Palin typists, you're still okay, you're still going strong. She's a brilliant lady. So I think now it's time for me to say goodnight to everybody, but please do come back to the parlour. There's foodie woody bickies and cakeys as ever. There's wine and there's lager, etc. And I've been terribly naughty. I bought chocolate cakes. So those who actually are observing Lent and have given up chocolate, terribly sorry, and it's not Sunday, so you can't even have that excuse to break it. So look forward to seeing you back in the parlour. Thank you for everything, and good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worship for the Mayor of Gravesham.